Okay. Good evening, delegates, excellencies. Kindly take your seats. We are ready to get started, so please kindly take your seats.
Dear delegates, good evening and welcome to this informal stock-taking plenary to assess the status of negotiations. Yesterday, I outlined how work would proceed in the coming days. We now have less than 3 days to complete our work. With the closing plenary scheduled for Tuesday, December 12th, I am committed to this timeline, and I hope you are as committed as I am to the delivery on Tuesday, the 12th of December. And as explained a number of times before, I am very committed to delivering a paradigm shift led by the science that keeps 1.5 degrees within reach, reinforces climate resilience everywhere, for everyone, and we don't want to leave anyone behind. I am encouraged that negotiations are proceeding with openness, sincerity, and transparency. There is some positive movement at the political level, and we need to channel that energy into speeding up the technical work. That said, there are still more areas of divergence than agreement. The window is closing to close the gaps. We are making progress, but not fast enough and not satisfying enough. My message to parties this evening is very simple. Work faster, work smarter, work harder, and commit as much as I am committed to this process. Work with urgency. Work with a different mindset, a mindset that I tried to explain throughout our engagements, a mindset that will allow you flexibility, compromise, openness, cooperation, collaboration, and a true understanding of the urgency of the task at hand. I respect the fact that different points of view are deeply held. Now is the time to put aside self-interest for the common interest. Now is the time to show maximum flexibility to find common ground. Now is the time to shift gears and get to consensus. I am convinced that there is a balanced and ambitious package out there that all parties can and should align around. It is time to seize this opportunity. I can facilitate, I can continue to support, I can guide, and of course, I can continue to give you the space. You must do the work. It is time to decide. Please, no hesitation. We want decision. It is decision time. Tonight, I want to provide an overview of where we are on the various elements of our work. Since we last met, work has advanced on the following issues. Issues that required political guidance. These are currently being discussed through the ministerial pairing consultations on cross-cutting issues under the GST, mitigation, adaptation, and means of implementation. Outstanding technical work relating to items on the agendas of the governing bodies. These include work on the mitigation work program, the global goal on adaptation, the just transition work program, matters related to Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, response measures and reporting and review pursuant to Article 13 of the Paris Agreement, presidency consultations on specific issues outlined at the opening plenary, and presidency consultations under established agenda items. We shall first hear from His Excellency Adnan Amin on behalf of the Presidency regarding progress on the outstanding technical work relating to items on the agendas of the governing bodies. I will then ask our ministerial pairs to report on the progress made in their consultations. Adnan, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, based on your guidance at yesterday's plenary, I'm pleased to report back on the status of progress on the outstanding technical work related to the items on the agendas of the governing bodies. Over the last 2 days, all co-facilitators conducted consultations on behalf of the Presidency and have worked tirelessly and constructively to complete the outstanding work of a more technical nature that was forwarded to the governing bodies for completion. Extensive consultations have taken place to finalize work on these matters, which include the mitigation work program, the global goal on adaptation, the just transition work program, matters related to Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, response measures, and reporting and review pursuant to Article 13 of the Paris Agreement. Work has continued for the agenda items under the governing bodies at the opening of the conference, including matters relating to finance, as well as the consultations on specific issues outlined at the opening plenary. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, allow me to highlight some important progress achieved over the last 48 hours. I'm happy to report that parties have reached agreement on a draft decision for adoption by the CMA on reporting and review pursuant to Article 13 of the Paris Agreement. I thank parties and the co-facilitators for their hard work and their spirit of compromise. Agreement was also reached for the first time so early on the COP CMA guidance to the Green Climate Fund, which now has a clean draft decision to be forwarded to the COP CMA for adoption. I commend parties and co-facilitators for this important breakthrough. Constructive engagement is still ongoing with regards to matters related to Article 6, and the Presidency has decided to give parties until tomorrow evening to complete their work. The same approach will be applied to all outstanding finance items. Further to this, on response measures following consultations today, facilitators have prepared draft decisions and will take parties' views and report back to the Presidency on the way forward. Mr. President, while this is important progress, we still lack agreement on the draft decisions across all other outstanding technical work forwarded by the subsidiary bodies to items under the governing bodies. As you have indicated, technical engagement must catch up with the political momentum to deliver. On the mitigation work program, despite the best efforts of the co-facilitators, parties were unable to agree on the terms of a draft decision to be forwarded to the CMA. The co-facilitators have handed their work over to the Presidency, and we shall now consult with ministerial peering on mitigation to develop a way forward on this matter. On the global goal on adaptation, we would like to first of all express our appreciation to the SB chairs and the ministerial pair consulting on these issues related to adaptation for their close collaboration to support the Presidency in finding a way forward on this very important outcome, noting the challenges these discussions faced during the subsidiary bodies. We're happy to report that under the authority of the Presidency, the SB chairs are preparing a draft text to be issued overnight with textual elements for a draft decision on the global goal on adaptation. SB chairs will allow parties time to consider this draft text and conduct consultation with parties and groups tomorrow to get their feedback. The Presidency will then consult with the SB chairs and the ministerial pair on how to take forward text on the decision regarding the global goal on adaptation. On the Just Transition Work Programme, we have provided additional time between 9 and 11:30 p.m. tonight for parties to discuss the revised iteration of the text and are hoping that they can reach agreement on the terms of a draft decision to be forwarded to the CMA for adoption. We encourage parties to engage in the spirit of compromise and reach agreement on this very important outcome. Following the report back from the co-facilitators tonight, the Presidency will assess how to take this work forward. On matters related to finance, consultations are still ongoing across all outstanding sub-agenda items. Parties are working intensively across all issues. Many challenges remain across key discussions, such as the outcome of the NCQG, matters related to the Standing Committee on Finance, Article 9.5, and long-term climate finance. Some progress has been achieved in the discussions regarding guidance to the GEF and the Adaptation Fund. Consultations have concluded on other agenda items such as adoption of the rules of procedure, dates and venues, decision-making under the UNFCCC process, WIM governance, and the report on the high-level ministerial roundtable on increased ambition of the Kyoto Protocol commitments. Consultations by the Presidency on the special needs and circumstances of Africa, the 7th review of the financial mechanism under the CMA, and issues related to Article 3, Para 9, and Article 21 of the Kyoto Protocol were undertaken, and the Presidency is assessing further engagement on these issues. Finally, as announced by the COP President in the opening, we will have continued consultation with parties on building opportunities for youth to engage in the UNFCCC process. This concludes our report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Adnan. I'd like to thank all the delegates that are supporting the Presidency to get this work across the line and ensure that we move forward upholding balance across all areas of work. I also thank parties for their constructive engagement over the last 2 days. I see the commitment and the willingness to build bridges and reach common understanding. We need to do more, though. As we move into the next stage of our political engagement, allow me to invite the pairs of ministers to provide an update on the status of their consultations. I'll first give the floor to Her Excellency Barbara Creasy and His Excellency Dan Jorgensen, who will update us on their consultations regarding cross-cutting issues under the GST. Excellencies, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President. Minister Creasy and I have carried out consultations with groups and parties throughout yesterday and today. All parties underlined the importance of a balanced package across mitigation, adaptation, and means of implementation. I will focus my update on overarching, cross-cutting, and forward-looking issues. Regarding the overall framing of the GST, we have consulted on how we should approach responsibility and principles such as equity and common but differentiated responsibility and respective capabilities in light of different national circumstances. We've also consulted on areas such as international cooperation and unilateral measures, as well as views on the ways forward in implementing the global stocktake. All parties have underlined that the GST should not be a space to renegotiate the Paris Agreement. We've heard broad support that GST should take its basis in science and equity, recognize urgency, and lead to higher ambitions and a balanced outcome. Everyone agrees on the importance of international cooperation as key for tackling climate change. This is why we're here in Dubai. Even though there are many areas where parties have common visions for the GST, there are still way too many areas where parties are too far from each other. There are different views on how to approach the questions of historic, current, and future emissions in the light of equity and the best available science. Parties differ on their approach to referencing the principles of the Convention and the Paris Agreement. Some parties are raising concerns about the effects of emission-related unilateral trade measures and want these concerns clearly reflected in the text. Other parties are of the view that this should not be considered in the stocktake. In terms of the section on the way forward, parties have many suggestions for ways to implement the outcome of the GST. However, we have also heard concerns that these ways forward should not interfere with the national determined nature of the NDCs. As regards the way forward from here, we expect to continue with consultations tomorrow morning. I urge you to start focusing on key priorities and show flexibility so that we can start to narrow down and eliminate options. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Dan. Her Excellency Barbara. Okay, I think that's sufficient enough then on your work. Thank you. I now invite His Excellency Aspen Barth Aid to update us on their consultations on mitigation. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will report back on behalf of both of Minister Grace Fu of Singapore and myself, and we've been working very closely. We've had extensive consultations both yesterday and today, and we met with practically all groups. A few meetings to remain for tomorrow, and then we might go back to some of the people we talked to. We work on the issue of mitigation in a transversal manner across all sectors. There is a significant agreement by most parties on the importance of 1.5 and science, our North Star, as our President says, on the need for increased ambition, and on the need to improve implementation. There is a very broad agreement, and here I echo what was said by my good colleague Dan Jørgensen, that it is all about the Paris Agreement. It's not about rewriting. It's about reflecting the bottom-up nature of the Paris Agreement, that we can make high-level messages, but we're not imposing country-specific decisions. That is left to the nationally determined contributions. That said, there is a broad recognition in our area that there is a need for an energy transition that takes it into a lower emission future. Many countries, as you know, sign up to and agree to the principle of tripling of renewables and doubling of efficiency. We had very good conversations also on the issue of non-CO2 gases, particularly methane, and we welcome the good progress there. And very many of our interlocutors make reference to nature, to forest, to the sink, and also to make sure that what comes out here is compatible with the Kunming-Montreal biodiversity agreement. Where we have some diverging views still, and where we still have to do some work, is how to speak about fossil. Shall we speak about fossil phase out, phase down, or at all? And if phase out or phase down, what about mitigation efforts like abatement, which is still outstanding issues, and there are some difference and some divergence still on that area. Many of our interlocutors also here in our group refer to the principle of differentiation, CBDR, RC, and several refer to the need to have an equitable transition. Now that comes in different forms. Some argue that every country needs to transition into a greener, low emission, eventually a no emission future, but that requires more support from the developed countries. And in other countries and other groups make reference to the dividing up of the remaining carbon budget and who are now allowed to emit, continue to emit. And many say that the developed countries have to take the lead. We will have some more work to do in order to come to some kind of agreement that we can recommend to you, Mr. President, on all these issues. But I have to say that the conversations have been taking place in a very constructive tone. I see a lot of will to move forward. I think your call for everybody to be flexible and try to look for solutions is something that we will really bring with us to the meetings that we will be having tomorrow and in the coming days. And we look forward to continuing our work. And the last thing I want to say, again, on behalf of Great Fu and myself, is that, of course, we are focusing on this issue, but we all know that success of this COP means that we make progress on the different tracks together. So we all, at the end of the day, we need to see how they're all connected, mitigation, adaptation, means of implementation, and so on. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Excellency. I now invite Her Excellency Maisa Rojas and Her Excellency Jennifer McAllister to update us on their consultations on adaptation. Excellencies, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President. And I will be brief, given that you all know that we don't have text yet and that the SB chairs conducted consultations in parallel to me and Minister McAllister. But we did indeed consult with each of the groups between yesterday and today. And we coordinated the work with the SB chairs before the consultations so that we at least tried to ask different types of questions. They focusing more on the technical part and we, the ministers, on the more political questions. And we did also, after we finished our consultations, meet back again to see, to share what we have learned. And as you already heard, the SB chairs are tasked to provide a text tonight. So given that, let me just very briefly tell you that everyone acknowledged that adaptation is very important especially for developing countries, and that there is an important adaptation gap in action and also in financing. I would say that the two most contentious issues are the inclusion and how to include the principles and means of implementation. I pass now over to my fellow minister.
Thank you, Minister Rojas. It's a pleasure to work with you, and thank you, President. I don't have a great deal more to add to Mace's report, which covers the most significant of our findings, but I did want to say one thing, which is that we commenced our consultations in New York back in September, and I think one of the positive things we'd observe is that from those initial consultations, there has been a notable move towards consensus that targets would be included in the framework, and whilst there remains some challenge about how to particularly frame targets or objectives as either qualitative or quantitative, there is a large number of parties who are increasingly comfortable with some of the ideas around themes and also some of the ideas about using the adaptation cycle. And I think we were very appreciative of those parties who were willing to explore variations on proposals that they previously articulated. As a more general idea, I do wish to thank the parties who engaged with us. We pressed a number of you about your ideas. You've shown a great flexibility in many occasions and a willingness to engage with us seriously about the questions we were asking of you. As the President has indicated, we now need to work faster and smarter and harder, and I look forward to your responses to the text that is to be produced by the chairs of the subsidiary bodies and engaging with you on those ideas further in the coming days.
Thank you, Excellencies. I now invite Her Excellency Yasmin Fouad and His Excellency Stephen Guilbeault to update us on their consultations on issues related to means of implementation. Excellencies, you have the floor.
Thank you, President. Thank you very much for providing my fellow Minister Guilbeault and myself the opportunity to provide parties with an update on our work. Following yesterday's ministerial high-level dialogue, we took up our work this morning after having consulted with the co-chairs of the relevant agenda items. During the course of the day, His Excellency Guilbeault and I conducted bilateral ministerial consultation with all groups of parties on the basis of a set of questions that were circulated in advance of the bilateral consultations. The questions refer to the issue of the long-term finance, the new collective quantified goal, Article 2, Paragraph 1C, and adaptation finance. I pass over to Minister Guilbeault.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, dear Yasmin. So, technical deliberations continued through the day alongside the bilateral consultations. Parties engaged constructively in our discussion on the basis of these questions, and we listened carefully to the issues parties brought to our attention. We thank you for this opportunity and look to the Presidency for the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellencies. I wish to extend my sincere appreciation and gratitude to the ministers for their hard work and for their commitment to help parties find common ground and reach consensus. Distinguished delegates, we are moving in the right direction, but like I said before, we are not moving fast enough. Further to what Adnan outlined, I'd like to share some guidance on how all work will be brought together to deliver by December 12th. Our ministerial pairs will continue their consultations in a spirit of identifying possible options for consensus solutions before we all meet in a single sitting format. As I outlined yesterday, it is my intention to convene a single sitting, the Majlis, tomorrow at 3 p.m., which shall set the stage for the final phase of our political engagement. In a Majlis, everyone is equal. Every view counts. It is a forum that provides the opportunity to discuss, deliberate, debate, and share views openly. They are conceived to build consensus, This Majlis will enable us to have a constructive engagement, not to reiterate views and positions, but to find the building blocks of convergence and to arrive at solutions. To bring some coherence to our work, I expect that the first Majlis will focus on building the balance across the COP28 package. To balance this package, I will need you to bring solutions to bridge the divides. At the Majlis, I want us to address issues around equity, mitigation, and adaptation, ambition, and support. I intend to continue to use the Majlis format to reflect on the very focused engagement on outstanding key areas of divergence. I don't want to prejudge progress over the coming days, but I have emphasized the need for a very strong outcome. These discussions, together with the input from the ministerial consultations, will provide the Presidency with the party's guidance to bridge divides. It will also inform the iteration of textual elements across all outcomes in a balanced and coherent manner to enable the President to table a package overnight by the morning of Monday, 11th December. I will chair the first meeting of the Majlis tomorrow, and I invite you all to engage constructively and with a sense of delivery. So please come with solutions. We have moved into the critical political phase, and I do count on every minister and every head of delegation for their direct, active, and interactive engagement. This engagement must start now. Upon conclusion of the Majlis, I will provide further guidance on the way forward to ensure that we bring the conference to a successful and momentous close on Tuesday. Dear colleagues, we are nearing the end, but we have a lot of work to do. I know that we can, we must, and I know that we will deliver a historic package of outcomes that translate into robust, tangible global action. Time is not on our side, but this is our moment. Our moment to focus minds, find solutions, seal consensus. I ask you to redouble your efforts. I ask you to go the extra mile. And I ask you to leave no stone unturned. And I ask you to push yourselves out of your comfort zones. The Presidency's door is open. My door is wide open and will be open to all of you at any time of the day you want. Let's use our time wisely. Let's get this done, and I have no doubt with our ability to make it happen. If any party wishes to comment at this stage, please indicate at this point your interest to take the floor. I have a request from Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan, you have the floor.
Thank you, President. Excellencies, esteemed colleagues, I extend our appreciation to the United Arab Emirates Presidency and the Secretariat for ensuring productive work and efficient organization of this conference. I wish to bring up an issue of utmost importance for Kyrgyzstan and mountain countries on all continents. We have long advocated for the recognition of mountains as a vital ecosystem, distinct in its importance and challenges. This year, thanks to collective efforts, the Global Stocktake Report for the first time acknowledges mountains alongside forests and oceans and the cryosphere. This is a significant step, but we must not stop there. We believe that the COP28 must result in launching the new dialogue on mountains and climate. Mountains are not just scenic backdrops. They are crucial to our planet's health, influencing weather patterns, water resources, and biodiversity. Establishing this dialogue will be a long overdue acknowledgement of their true significance to the Earth. We count on the responsible penholders to heed this call, respect the needs and aspirations of the mountain countries, and reflect in the final text of the Global Stocktake Report the initiative of a dialogue on mountains and climate. I would also like to take this opportunity to express the Kyrgyz Republic's strong support for Azerbaijan to host the next conference of the parties. We are confident in Azerbaijan's readiness and required capacity to prepare and host such a pivotal event, continuing the momentum we are building here in Dubai. As we move forward, let us remember the weight of responsibility we carry. The decisions we make here at the conference shape the future of our planet. Kyrgyzstan looks forward to working constructively with all of the conference in this endeavor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Excellency, for your comment and for your statement. I do see a request from Japan. Japan, you have the floor.
I thank the Presidency, peers of ministers and co-facilitators for their efforts to finalize the discussion. The world is not on track yet to the 1.5 degree goal. Through successful outcome of the global stocktake, we must deliver a strong message to the world in COP28. Every one of us have to accelerate our own climate actions under the Paris Agreement. The outcome of COP28 should be balanced among mitigation, adaptation, and means of implementation, as President mentioned. I have one important message on Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Article 6 can mobilize public finance towards mitigation, thus contribute to strengthening ambition and implementation. We must focus on the full operationalization of Article 6 in this COP. Let us complete the remaining technical matters, such as reporting format based on the discussions among experts. We are not here for any reopening or discussion of issues that are not relevant to its operation. Everyone, let us finalize our homework on Article 6 in this COP. Through the utilization of Article 6, we can realize actual greenhouse gas emission reductions. Let us provide hope toward 1.5 degree target to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan, for your statement. I see no more requests. Allow me to urge you all again to work harder, to commit, to double your efforts, and to work towards consensus, towards all pressing issues. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. I wish you all a good evening, and this meeting is now adjourned.